Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Azan Cigars, Nea, and Barracoa. Duran Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all tobacco is grown on their farms and rolled in their factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard. Experience the world through the eyes of an icon with the new Macanudo Inspirado line. Created for a global palate, Macanudo Inspirado defies convention. Handcrafted with the world's finest tobaccos, Inspirado delivers a unique international smoking experience. Find Inspirado Orange at fine tobaccos everywhere, and Inspirado Black online and in your favorite catalogs. Ready to be inspired? Check out Macanudo Inspirado now at macanudo.com.
Hey, Paul, what's up?
What's up, Mark?
Did you hear about the new cigar that's coming out?
Which one is that? There's like 800 new ones every week.
The one with the Connecticut broadleaf wrapper.
Oh, really? I love Connecticut broadleaf. Who makes it?
I think it's Nicaraguan.
So Nicaraguan binder and filler, or it's made in a factory in Nicaragua?
I always have to Google these, and it's taking me like an hour to find out what it is.
If this is a frequent conversation with your cigar buddies, look no further than Stogie Geeks News, the only cigar news podcast on the internet. Will Cooper, the man behind cigar-coop.com, and Paul Asadorian from the Stogie Geeks produce a weekly show covering the latest cigar news, new blends, cigar manufacturer announcements, and more. Subscribe to the video version on YouTube, or get the audio version in your favorite podcast catcher. Head on over to stogienews.tv to subscribe today.
Saga Cigars, makers of the Saga Golden Age. The Golden Age is a cigar that takes you back to the classic days of cigar smoking. Through the 6 generations of experience by the Reyes family, the Saga Golden Age delivers a timeless blend that uses the nobility of the tobacco to bring you the perfect balance of power and flavor. It narrates better than words the history of a family's tradition in tobacco, delivering a cigar much like the ones they used to smoke in the times of Hemingway. Saga Golden Age is a full-bodied, full-flavored Dominican Puro. With tobaccos from one farm, the blend features a Corojo 2006 wrapper and filler from original Cuban seeds grown in the Dominican Republic. Available in 4 sizes at an affordable price, the Saga Golden Age is sure to please and take you back on a journey to yesteryear. Brought to you by Rocky Patel Premium Cigars, the Tabacero by Hamlet Paredes, developed and blended by Cuban master of tobacco, Hamlet Paredes. This cigar is an exciting addition to the Patel family, featuring traditional and rare sizes hand-picked by Hamlet himself. Smoke Tabacero by Hamlet Paredes today. For more information, visit them on the web at rockypatel.com and be sure to follow Rocky Patel Premium Cigars on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Welcome back, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show. This is our Stogies of the Week segment. I'll kick it off with a throwback. I smoked a La Aurora Preferidos Lancero. We talked about these. We were talking about these recently, Will. Our favorite Lanceros segment we did in shorts.
Yes, I think that was where this came up.
And I went back and smoked a couple of them, and they're still Oasis. They're still smoking awesome. They still age really well. They're just superb cigars. Tons of. Speaking of something you want to retrohale, this is a cigar you want to retrohale.
That's a good point.
Subtle flavors. It's just medium bodied. It's not too strong at all. You could smoke these in the morning. You could smoke them really any time, which is one of the reasons why it has an Oasis rating. So you can smoke this cigar anytime. It's one of my favorite Lanceros, and I pretty much have the last of them in circulation. Good luck finding them.
Yeah, I mean, they, we talk about FDA. I just want to make up this point that there's a good chance that Lanceros could be one of the big casualties.
Really?
if you think about it, these are not the ones that sell. So if a
Mm.
company is going to, you know, go for approval, they're most likely going to go on sizes where they know they can get repeat business from customers. So or the retailers. So a lot of the Lancero releases they're like Solomon's, which is another one I'm kind of worried
Mm.
about going away. They tend to go. They tend to be smaller batch releases, and I believe this Preferido Lancero was a smaller batch release. I'm not saying they'll be gone completely, but could be something really worth keeping an eye on. This particular size.
Absolutely. What else you
Yeah.
got, Will?
Um. So it's funny because I went to a couple of throwback cigars this week too, just to kind of mix things up, and I'll talk about this first one. So this is from Perdomo, and when I think of Perdomo, I think of Connecticut Shade,
Mm-hmm.
Habano, and Maduro. But Perdomo actually has a Cameroon that they released.
Really, I
It
didn't
was
know that.
Yeah, it was. They actually have done two runs of this particular Cameroon. They did one in the, like, I want to say, the the mid 2000s, but they came back out in 2011 with a Cameroon. And it's called the Perdome Reserve Limited Cameroon Edition Petite Corona. And I'll be putting these cigars up on the feed. It's a 4.5 by 44 Petite Corona. And the story is that Nick Perdomo, he had some Cameroon tobacco he came into. It was a limited amount. He decided to basically do a limited run in 2011. I loved this cigar in 2011 so much. I bought a couple of boxes of this cigar.
Hmm.
It was actually a very affordable cigar at $5.75.
Wow, for
So
Cameroon.
I mean, yeah, I mean the boxes were they weren't that expensive, and this is. I remember I reviewed this cigar in Cigar Coop in 2011, and the flavors are incredible. I mean, there's some really did a really good job getting that Cameroon sweetness out. I just remember the burn of that cigar it may have been a candidate for one of the all-time best burns I had. And I had a few of these lying around my humidor, so they're almost 5 years old, and they still burn incredibly. Um, just There's a lot of complexity with this little cigar too. I'd say it's more of a mild. I think the strength in the body went down a bit on the cigar. I think it's more in the mild to medium in terms of strength, medium in terms of body. But if you could find these cigars, I would definitely get your hands on. They are not. They are around. I have seen them. I did some googling. I've seen a few
Hmm.
stores have them. It's a box worthy cigar. Um,
Nice.
Hidden gem from Nick Perdomo.
I did the Manolo Estate Heavyweight Maduro. Thank you, Will,
Uh,
for clarifying that
no problem.
in the notes. I picked
I
these
just
up
did
at
that.
yeah. I thank you. I picked this up at Mr. J's. I was hoping that you would recognize it from the picture and know what it was.
Mhm.
These are relatively new addition to. I've never seen them in a store here in New England. Do you know anything about the company? I'm assuming
Um,
that you recognize the
yeah,
cigar.
you actually talked about a couple of the blends. I think a
Yeah,
couple weeks ago.
yeah.
Yeah, they're a company called Master Blends Cigars. I'll definitely be paying a visit to them at the IPCPR. So they're a boutique company or a small company. And they make a cigar called the Connecticut Grand Fino, which is their Connecticut. They make something called the Series 32, which is their Habano, and then there's this heavyweight Maduro, which has the gold band on it. What I know about this cigar, it's San Andreas Mexican wrapper. They have a Criollo 98 binder, and then the filler is a mix of Nicaragua, Esteli, and Pennsylvania.
It was a really good Maduro, actually. I rated it a 5, but it was a great smoking Maduro. It was really smooth, had good flavor. I would call it a 5.
Yeah, I mean, I have to give these guys. I didn't realize Mr. J's had them in there.
Mm.
I've had some communication with these guys. I'll definitely pay them a visit at the trade show in a couple of weeks, assuming they are there. Because I'm kind of curious to kind of, obviously Mr. J's brought them in
Yeah.
too. They must, to get through. Sometimes the gate there isn't easy, so they must have seen something with those cigars. And fiber is certainly nothing to.
Yeah, and what was the other one I smoked? That one was better, I thought.
There was the Habano, the Series 32, and
Yeah,
then
the
there was
Habano. Their Habano was the best one out of the bunch. I smoked the Habano, the Maduro, and the Connecticut. Their Habano was the best one out of the bunch.
yeah, that's the Habano. That's using an Ecuadorian Habano on that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else you got, Will?
Um, this is another. This it's interesting this cigar actually saw a lot of old reviews in the Stogie feed on it. The Casada Jalapa.
Which one was the Jalapa now?
Okay,
No,
it's
yeah, now you're taking me way back in Stogie
yeah,
Geeks history.
well, okay. So here's the deal with the jalapa. You know the España.
Yes.
Okay. So when the España came out in 2011, basically Casada cigars could not keep up with demand.
Yeah,
In
there
the,
was like, oh yeah, I remember the jalapa.
yep.
Yeah,
So what
but
happened
yeah,
is
because the España was like super hard to get back in the day.
you couldn't get those back then, right?
Oh, I remember trying to find them. I remember just buying boxes of the short Robustos.
Right, right. And that was using an Ecuadorian outer Paraca wrapper, which was harder to get at the time.
Hmm.
So what happened is they came out, they got their hands on, Manuel Quesada got his hands on some jalapa wrapper from Nicaragua. And they played with various blends and they put it on the España blend. And they loved the way it smoked. So they did a release of it in 2012. Now the catch with this is they had even less of this wrapper than the Ecuadorian outer Paraca wrapper. And and here's what they did: they blended it to some different sizes. So these are sizes that you wouldn't find in the España.
Hmm.
I actually smoked the 7 5/8 by 49 Prominente. I mean, so that's a big Churchill.
Yeah, and this is a Nicaraguan jalapa wrapper.
Right, over Dominican binder, which and Dominican, Nicaraguan, and Connecticut burley filler, which is the same as what the España is.
It kind of looks like almost like an Ecuadorian. It smokes to me like an Ecuadorian shade Connecticut or
It,
Connecticut shade.
it had a lot. You know, it's funny, Paul. It had a lot of those characteristics
It
of
did.
it. Yeah, and here's the story how I got my hands on this. Manuel Quesada is a very, very good friend of the folks at Union Cigar, which is my local shop. He has a locker there,
Mm.
and I had mentioned this cigar to Nathan, who's the owner, because they're big Quesada
Yeah, I
supporters,
bet.
and he had never had it, and I guess somehow it came up in a conversation with Manolo, and this cigar arrived at Union Cigars, a box of these, and to give Nathan credit, he did not put this box up for sale. He gave it to most of his regulars. He
Mm.
shared it, which was an incredible. He could have easily put these on the shelf, sold them, made money, and but he felt Manuel didn't charge him for the box, so. Um, and I'll tell you what, this cigar is a great cigar. It's got a little kick to it. It's a medium to full cigar.
Now,
It's
see,
got.
when we smoked it, we found it to be super mild.
I didn't find this to be super mild.
I think if you go back in the reviews,
Yeah,
I might be wrong, but I'm almost positive we smoked
yeah.
this and we thought it was super mild.
But I'll say this, and I again, and I could be totally wrong, but this cigar, no one smoked the Prominente in
Okay.
those reviews. So yeah, that's the
It's
only
true.
answer.
Yep, we
So
just
this is
smoked different sizes. Interesting.
So yeah,
And that's
but
the
I'm not.
big one. That's the, like you said, 758 by 49. Yeah, big Churchill.
It's interesting. I heard Skip Martin talk about a case where he felt certain cigars were getting stronger with age at times.
Really?
Um,
I've never
he has.
heard that.
I've heard him say that. Yeah.
I
In
would
fact,
trust his opinion on that.
yeah, I've actually recently. I think he was talking about that when he was on with Cigar Dojo about a week ago. But I
That's
definitely
interesting.
heard him say that, and it reminded me. There's a few cigars I put in that boat. I tell you, if you can get in these cigars, I did some googling as well, and they are around.
Mm.
If folks are having trouble, they can always contact us, and I'll try to point you in a right direction for it. But I gave it a box split. This one, I thought it was
Nice.
a good cigar.
I smoked a great cigar, and I know we just said that Villiger's a sponsor now, but I've talked about this cigar in the past, and I don't know
Yeah.
that I've talked about this size specifically. And this has probably over 6 months of age in my humidor on it. And I smoked the Trill Robusto. Very, very good cigar, Will. This was my first cigar of the day today, and I have to say, it hit the spot. And I think age has lowered the strength enough where you could
That
smoke
was
it
a
in the
strong
morning.
cigar. I remember when that came out.
It wasn't overpowering. Now, I did eat breakfast, but it wasn't overpowering. It was good, medium-bodied. What I love about this cigar is it has this herbal component to it that I can't place. Like, I have never tasted this kind of herbal component in a cigar before. It's not like an Avo kind of herbal component. It's not a Davidoff herbal component. It's their own unique flavor profile of this cigar. And I think that carries throughout the Trill line. I thought that the Robusto in this line really brought it to the forefront. And I'm calling this cigar box worthy. This really impressed me. And I know we just disclosed that Villiger's a sponsor, but I would have given the same review whether they're a sponsor or not. This is a box worthy cigar, the Trill Robusto.
Yeah, and that's one of the cigars when we were talking to Renee. it's actually one of those cigars that they've moved away from. That was the one of the brands where they weren't branding it as Villiger.
Yeah.
And they're making that cigar at Hochi Blanco's Tabacalera Palma factory
Hmm.
in the Dominican. And there is some unique tobaccos he's got his hands on down
Well,
there.
it's interesting. There's a whole backstory about where I got these cigars and how I got them and the whole thing. And there's a local shop, and then the person that works there is the husband of one of the owners, and he was the rep for Villiger. And so, well, Jana, who's been on the show before, was like, "You should try it." She's like, she disclosed everything. She's like, we're carrying it, and I bought like a line sampler of the Trill, and I smoked through them. And when I walked into the cigar lounge next door, one of the local Rhode Island cigar guys was like, "What are you smoking?" And I'm like, "I'm smoking a Trill Robusto." He's like, "Those are really good." He's like, "I actually buy them at the other shop." And he's like, and we talked about the whole backstory. And he's like, "Yeah, Paul. Now, Dave is now a rep for somewhere else. Will, who's Dave a rep for now?"
I'm not sure.
He's a rep for a different company now. I can't think of
Right.
who it is. Jana's going to kill me for not remembering. Sorry, Dave. Sorry, Jana. But supposedly there's still good sellers in Jana's shop. So, and I'm happy for that because I think it's a solid cigar. I think it has a pretty good price point too, and I don't remember them being overly expensive either. And specifically, I wanted to mention it because it's something different. And I know I talked about them before, but that Robusto really brought out those unique characteristics in that cigar, in my opinion. Again, it benefited from at least 8 months age in my humidor. But I was really impressed with this cigar, Will.
Trill was actually my favorite. They had the Trill, the Cuellar, and the Cabaret de Maduro, which were the three un-Villiger banded. And the Trill, I remember, was my favorite of the three, was the Habano. Hey, you know what? We heard Renee. If you didn't hear the interview, I certainly encourage folks to listen because Villiger has some very good cigars. And
They
he
do.
talked a lot about the business drivers that company went through here. And we have to remember, this is a business. And
Absolutely.
so you have to operational be a business, but I think they've had some really good cigars in the portfolio. This is one of them. I
Absolutely.
agree.
Back to you, Will.
So I got a few newer cigars. So I have now cracked open my boxes of Skinny Monsters.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I talked to you a little about this one.
These
but,
are the Petite Lanceros.
the Petite Lanceros, the 6x38s in the Skinny Monsters. Which the interesting about the Skinny Monsters, they're all the same size, which is the first time in the monster kind of offshoots that they're all the same size.
That's interesting. And a 6x38 is usually a Petite Lancero a little shorter than that.
It depends. I mean, I think six. I think anything below 6.5, I would consider outside the Lancero range. That's just my personal thing. The tip is one of those ugly stepchild monsters where there was never a big monster released for it. They did a pudgy monster with that and the chuck. And now these have returned in these skinny monsters. Now, I remember when the TIFF came out with the pudgies, I liked the TIFF a lot in that Robusto size that they released. I thought it was a really good Connecticut blend, and I remember it was a polarizing thing. So I was really looking forward to smoking this in the Petite Lancero.
Yeah, it's sorry. Well, it's 6.25 by 39 is an Opus X Petite Lancero. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I guess
it is
we're-
about a 6. They range from 6 by 38 to 6 by 40, being labeled as a Petite Lancero. I guess 7 would be a full Lancero. 6 apparently is a petite, but
Or yeah, when I tend to like the Lancero in that 6 to 6.5
yeah,
range.
I do
better.
too. I like it a little shorter
I like it a little shorter
because I think you get a better draw.
you get a better draw. It's kind of a sim, and the cigar sometimes won't run out of gas.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I really like this in the Robusto. Maybe this is one where size matters. It was okay, is what
This
I'll
was
say.
the TIFF. The TIFF for you was just okay. You said that
I
to me
thought it was.
earlier.
Yeah, I thought it was a boring smoke. It had some cream notes. It had some cedar. It was very blah. And I'll use that cliche. It couldn't make up its mind what it wanted
to do. Yeah.
It wanted to do. I mean,
See, I like this one. The one I smoked, I thought had construction issues, but the flavors I got, I thought were really good on it.
I remember I was looking at your review,
Yeah.
and you were much higher than me with this one. It's a mild cigar. It's definitely not a stronger cigar. Now, we talked. Remember when we were talking to Omar from Fratello, and he had to make his Lancero to get it down to a 38.
He had to take stuff out.
Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know if someone, if when you take, and that's why sometimes a company, if they can't get it to the 38, if taking it out, they'll take it up to a 40 or 42.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know what Pete did with this blend. It just, to me, it was one of the weaker monster releases I've had. I mean,
Right.
I'd say it's a try one. It's not a bad cigar.
I think you're right, Will. I think it speaks to how difficult it is to come up with a Petite Lancero that really shines because as you add ring gauge, when you get closer to a 6x46, it's a Corona, and we all know and love that size.
Right.
And maybe that's why that size shines a lot more, because they can put more of that filler tobacco in. When you go smaller ring gauge, you can only put so much of that filler in. But you're still getting the wrapper. So, I mean, there are some Petite Lanceros. Certainly the Saguita from Debonair is one of my favorites. Phil did a masterful job with that size in both the Habano and the Maduro. Is it a Habano? Habano and the Maduro.
They're in both. They're in both, yeah.
And the Opus X Petite Lancero is absolutely fantastic as well. And the Skinny Monsters have been good for me. They haven't. You're right. Well, none of them have really wowed me.
Yeah, this is the first one I've gone through. So I'll be going through these probably on a weekly basis for the next few shows. I have the Chuck in my rotation pretty soon to smoke. At one point, you mentioned, Mr. J, Ocean State Cigars, Paul Doyle, when he did his Lanceros, I noticed there were 41 ring gauges.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? He kept, whatever it is, I mean, that's why I think his Lanceros was so good.
Yeah.
Because maybe if he had pulled that down to a 38, it may have.
You would have had to pull the leaf or two out. That would have made a difference.
And I agree. I love Frias, right? I love Fratello, but I think when they pulled out some of that tobacco with the Fratello blend, it lost something.
It did. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I smoked a La Dueña. This is kind of like a throwback. Remember, there was a hype around La Dueña when it came out. And correct me if I'm wrong, Will. Wasn't this Yanni Garcia and the Quesada? Did they work on this, or just Yanni worked on this?
No, and I'm actually funny. It's funny you said that because the cigar you're talking about, where they work with Quesada, it's called the Tres Reñas.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is, Union got a box of them from Quesada as well.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a different cigar. But this was just.
Talk about that next week. It's kind of funny you said that.
So this was just Yanni Garcia's cigar, correct?
Yes. Oh, here's what happened. She worked on this with Pete Johnson.
Yes.
So Pete actually blended this cigar for Yanni and for my father.
It's a very good cigar. This one's got some age on it. I actually got them on a closeout because they haven't been selling in a particular shop for whatever reason. No knock on the cigar. I called it a 5er. I thought it still had some of the same flavor characteristics. It smoothed out a bit, but it didn't get better in terms of flavor with age, right? And that's a lot of times when we talk about with age. Age is not infusing flavor into the cigar. Age is really smoothing out the cigar and letting some of those flavors that are already there, letting you pick up on them more easily. That cigar did this, but it was still a 5er for me. And this was the short Bellicoso format, which was, again, it was a good cigar. I would buy, 5er or probably more on a closeout kind of sale for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you know which one they made a box press.
Yeah.
Which I actually really liked.
Yeah. No, it's a great blend. Pete did a great job blending it.
Do you think the problem with that cigar was the band?
No, I just think I just think it was marketing overall, Will. I don't think it was necessarily the band. I think it was just the marketing behind it, and it kind of got lost. It didn't carry the Tatawahe name.
Or the My Father name.
Or the My Father name, and I think that really portion of the marketing is what killed it. You could have had that same band, and if it said Tatawahe La Dueña, they would have sold 3 times as much, in my opinion. And I'm not a marketing genius or a genius in the cigar industry, but that's just my opinion, that if they said Tatawahe La Dueña and made it a Tatawahe brand, it would have sold like hotcakes.
Yeah. There's an episode, and we have to have Riley kind of go into the throwbacks, where you guys, I know, when it was Stogie Santa came back from IPCPR with the La Dueña, and you all smoked it, and I remember that show vividly.
Yeah.
So I think we got to get Riley to do a throwback.
Absolutely.
Throwback on that one, yeah. It's very, because I remember, and I distinctly remember listening to that show and wanting to get that cigar because
we were really high. Yeah, we were really high on it.
Yeah, it was one of the highlights of the show, I think I remember.
We were really excited about this cigar. And now it's amazing how it reached that peak and then just kind of, and it's not the cigar's fault. It's still a good cigar.
Right.
we were just excited about it. I don't
Yep. Yep. Yep.
know. Back to you, Will.
So I'm staying in the My Father family. I smoked a cigar called the My Father Garcia and Garcia. Have you heard of this cigar?
I have.
Yeah.
Is this a pretty old blend for them?
Actually, it's the opposite. It's a very
It's
new
a new
blend.
one?
Yeah, and this is basically, how can I put this? I would say what they were trying to do with this cigar is similar to what Fuente does with their Opus X,
Mm-hmm.
what Padron does with their
Family Reserve?
the Family Reserve, and Drew Estate does with Liga Privada. They want to have a limited production, high-end premium cigar for their top retailers. So they came up with this blend, and it is a cigar that features an Ecuadorian Habano Rosado wrapper, a Nicaraguan Criollo binder, and fillers from Nicaraguan, including Pelo de Oro, grown on the Garcia farms. Um, Pelo de Oro is one of these low yield crops. It's susceptible to mold. They can't grow a lot of it, so it tends to drive tobacco prices up when it's used. That being said, this cigar has a very hefty price tag of $35.
Does it come in a coffin, tube?
No, it doesn't come in a coffin. It's one size, a 6 3/4 by 54 Toro.
Mm-hmm.
It's in some very, very nice packaging. I'll say that the packaging is great. This construction is impeccable.
I like how you set the stage that this was like kind of like their. I don't want to compare brands, but like their equivalent of Opus X or Family Reserve. This is their really special cigar.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention what I meant by that a little more, because those three, when I mentioned those companies, those are cigars, they do limited production of them. And again, they're not available to every retailer of theirs. They tend to reserve these for their top retailers. And that's kind of how they can keep it ongoing, so to speak. So in fairness to My Father, they really didn't have a ongoing release that fit that category.
Right.
Um,
And now they do, and what do you think of it? Because I kind of think I know where this is going.
That being said, it was a very well constructed cigar. It's very packed.
It had great burn, draw, and construction.
I'm
That's
sorry.
just
this was
like
not, but this just did not do it for me.
No.
And I smoked through 3 of these, which out of my wallet, by the way. These aren't free samples I'm getting from the reps. Okay, so it's $105 I spent on this, trying to find something that would work with this. It's got some decent flavors, a lot of natural tobacco. It's got a definite twang to this cigar. If you like that twanginess, when we talked about where I get a little bit of that citrus and a little of that pepper and natural tobacco converging, you're going to get that twang. But I was waiting for the wow factor with a $35 cigar. And every time I smoked it...
I was relating this to something, and I can't think of what it was. But I was saying how, like, burn, draw, and construction aren't really reviewable criteria because it's a given. Every cigar you smoke should have really good burn, draw, and construction, right? It's like whatever car you buy should, like when you push the brakes, it should stop. Every computer that you get, like when you type on the keyboard, the appropriate letters show up. Like those are there's like table stakes for the things that you buy, consume, whatever. And for me, burn, draw, and construction are those things that just should be in every cigar. It shouldn't be a review criteria, in my opinion. I think we kind of use it as a crutch. If we don't really like a cigar, we can talk positively about something. But we're not going to like every cigar we smoke. And I can tell you this wasn't high up on your list of cigars, Will.
When it came out to a numerical score for this cigar, it was an 89, which is not a spectacular rating. It's not a bad rating. When it came to a Stogie Geeks rating,
it was a throw it off the boat.
No. It was a try one.
It was a try one, yeah.
I could not say that there was not enough wow factor to tell me to tell people to say go buy multiples of this.
Right.
So then I had my debrief, my weekly cigar debrief with Stogie Santa.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna throw him on. I was just gonna say he agreed with me.
Mm-hmm.
We were completely in sync.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if it needs some age. I can't
say.
Well,
but I think it's good, Will, that we consult with other people. And one of the reasons why we do this show is to kind of give people a gauge. And that's not always going to be accurate. You're going to love some cigars that I'm going to rate a try one. That happens rarely, but it does happen. But for the most part, we kind of use each other as a a gauge. Like, sometimes I'm like, am I missing something from it? I've said this on the show before. Like, am I missing something in this cigar? Like, did I smoke this cigar? Especially ones that are limited release, $35 cigar, and I smoked it, and I'm like, that was just a try one. And I'm like, am I smoking crack? Did I get a bad cigar? Is my palate totally destroyed? Was I just not paying attention enough? So I'll go to someone like Stogie Santa or Will or Paul Joyle or Todd next door, whoever, and say, did you smoke that cigar? Like, what did you think of it? And if you're kind of close, you don't have to be exactly on the same page, right? But if you're kind of close, you're like, all right, I experienced that cigar, I did the way it was supposed to be enjoyed, and we both had this opinion of it. And that can be with a cigar that's not so great. That can be a cigar that's Oasis. It can happen on the other end of the spectrum too, Will, right? I smoke a cigar and I'm like, holy crap, this is Oasis. And I call Will up and I'm like, did you smoke this? And I don't say what my rating was right away, right? You don't want to show your cards. And you're like, what'd you think of that? And then if you're like, Boxworthy, Chuck Norris, or even Oasis, I'm like, all right, we're in the same category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, Paul, as a Stogie geek, you should try this cigar. I'm just, I'm kind of setting the stage for, again, when you get into a $35 smoke, though, it's got to be
spectacular.
I mean, there are cigars that I remember your reaction to Year of the Snake was similar to this. You just it didn't hit you.
It wasn't a bad cigar, but it didn't carry that higher rating for me.
Yeah, you may come back with this cigar and think I'm smoking crack with this. Saying,
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you and Stogie Santa had pretty much similar opinion of it, I'm probably gonna be in the same boat.
Well, don't forget we both loved Year of the Snake.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I smoked the Letelier.
Taché.
Is that the new limited release thing?
Yeah. In fact, I just got yours in the mail.
Yeah, and that's like a Robusto with a red band on the foot.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's got kind of the antique white.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what was that called again?
It is called the L'attaché. It is the second installment in the Côte d'Or line, which is basically become L'Atelier's limited edition. That's their limited edition that they do annually, so to speak.
Yeah. Now, so here's the thing. Stogie Santa is pretty much saying that, like, this so far is his #1 cigar of the year.
Well, let's.
Is that what he told you? I don't know. He speaks very highly of this cigar.
Okay, he was when those first came out. You know how when he gets on a cigar, and he starts waxing poetic about a cigar.
Oh yeah, it's like a little girl that wants to be a princess. And for her birthday, she gets a princess outfit, and she's just giggling and prancing around in her princess outfit. That's what Stogie Santa does about that, right? That pretty much describes it.
That is, I could not have said it any better.
If Stogie Santa could put on a dress and giggle like a little schoolgirl and prance around and say the name of the cigar over and over again, that's what he does when he loves a cigar.
Do we want to call this episode "Stogie Santa Wears a Dress"?
Yeah, I think it's perfect. It's perfect. It's got to be something along the lines of that story. And that visual of Stogie Santa skipping around, martini in one hand, cigar in the other. And he was. And when he does that with a cigar,
something better when he does it.
We're like, this is great. I'm going to go buy as many of these cigars as I can possibly afford, and I'm going to smoke them, and it's going to be fabulous, right?
Yeah.
That was not my experience with this cigar. I bought 5.
How recent did you buy these?
I don't know.
All right, there's a part 2 to the story.
A few weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know if it was the first shipment or the second shipment or what have you, but 2 out of my 3 were completely plugged. That's my luck, right? I mean, I'm not faulting Letelier or Casey. In any way, Casey is an awesome guy. He makes fantastic cigars. Don't get me wrong, and the cigar was not bad by any of the stretch of the imagination. Don't get that impression either. 2 out of my 3 were plugged. That's just my luck. If I'm going to pull 2 out of the whole lot of however many tens of thousands of cigars he made of this, if he made that many, it'll be the 2 that I bought. Right. The 3 that I smoked were very, very good. Don't get me wrong. These are really good cigars. They have a very unique flavor profile, and I can almost see where Stogie Santa is going. I don't know that I would put on a dress and dance around with a martini and the cigar, I would call it box split, in my opinion. That's the rating that I put in there. I would call it a box split. I think it's a good cigar. I think you should smoke more than one. But I did not jump up and down in my dress.
So
I just didn't.
in my weekly debrief with Stogie Santa,
Yeah.
like you have a weekly debrief, right? This cigar came up, and everything we talked about with the first batch, raving about.
Mm.
They brought the cigar back, and I'm gonna be careful here, but he basically said he felt the second batch didn't do it for him as much as the first batch.
Interesting, because now that you say that, I did not get anything from the first batch. By the time I got to the shop, which is probably hours after he texted me, they were sold out. Because anytime Stogie Santa does his princess dance about a cigar, they sell out. They sell out in Mr. Days. They're gone. They're gone.
Right.
And the second shipment comes in, and then you got a second chance, but then they'll be gone because Stogie Santa did a princess dance.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He does the princess dance. So now I have smoked this cigar. I have not, and when I smoked it, and I smoked it for my first batch. I thought it was a very good cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I probably put it as a box-worthy cigar. I now have the one you sent me, which I'm going to be smoking. I just got that one. So I can't make a determination one way or another. What I can say is the original Côte d'Or blend used a much higher priming Sanctus Spiritus wrapper, and for La Taché, they actually took the priming down a bit.
Right.
And I think it's something, the original Côte d'Or didn't do it for me, and I think taking that priming down and they made it a Robusto size as opposed to a Churchill. I think it's going to do something for that blend, so I do need to give my opinion on that, at least from the one you sent me.
Right.
Yeah.
What else you got, Will? A couple more?
Yep. I got Camacho. I've smoked the new Power Band.
How is that?
You know what? This is one of the, again, I have to discipline myself because basically when a cigar comes in, I want to smoke it off the truck.
Yes.
So I smoked this one off the truck, and I was like, it was good. Well, it didn't wow me, but I kind of set these down for a few weeks and did get around to smoking them, and I was actually really impressed with just that short amount of time that did this cigar. What I'll say is, it is a cigar that definitely in the first half it's medium to full in strength and body, and I'm like, okay, it's not the strongest Camacho. It's definitely not as strong as Camacho Corojo. But in the second half, that thing picks up. And I smoked the Toro side, I should say, where it definitely, it's going to be a cigar where you're going to get a little more strength over body, even a little more over flavor. But it's not going to sacrifice too much of that. There's 3 Ligeros in this thing, right? And I'll say this: if there's 3 Ligeros, and they're taking Ligeros from the Dominican, Honduras, and Nicaragua, they put a Mexican San Andreas binder of an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. But with those 3 Ligeros, that you could taste there's 3 Ligeros in there. There's no question about it with the spices and the power of that cigar. But the combustion was fantastic with that cigar, where you wouldn't have, it burned, really, really good. I think it's a good cigar. I think there's some good flavors. I think there's a fair amount of complexity. I think there's a lot. Here's a cigar, Paul, you got to sit and smoke it undistracted too.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, and I also debrief cigars sometimes with Seth from Seth's Humidor.
Yeah.
And when I told him about my meh reaction the first time, he said you got to kind of take the cigar back and definitely do it undistracted. And when you do it, you get a lot more.
I like that too.
Box split, I'd give it. It's not a cheap cigar. It's a $12 cigar for the Toro, but I'd say box split right now.
You reminded me of a cigar that I didn't put in this week, and I'm going to push some of my cigars till next week. But speaking of smoking cigars right off the truck, Will, I wanted to talk about this cigar, and I can't believe I didn't add it. I smoked 3 of them for this review.
I've done that many times.
Yeah, and these came from our good friends at La Flor Dominicana. It actually came from someone who works there. He was a good friend of the show, John Carney.
The TAAs?
Yeah, sent us 2 boxes of the TAAs, which I've sent to you as well, Will.
Yep. In fact, I just smoked one today.
I couldn't wait, dude. I couldn't wait. I remember talking to you on the phone. You're like, yeah, you should really wait to smoke them. And then I got in the office the next day, and I was like,
I did the same thing.
I was like, yeah, no, I'm smoking that because that's awesome. Because you said the Maduro. So this is a box press Maduro. La Flor
There's a natural and a Maduro. Well, they're both. Yeah, there's a Maduro, which is very, very hard to get.
It comes in boxes of 10.
Right.
And it's only available at certain TA retailers?
It's only available at those TA retailers that are going to do the La Flor Celebration TAA event. So it's an event
Wow.
TAA cigar.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, unicorn.
So the story of that is, and I gotta really thank John Carney. I took a picture. I collect all the TAA cigars. I
Hmm.
did it every year, and I took a nice picture of all my TAAs. I thought I had the whole set, and I knew about this hard to find one. And John Carney said you need one more to complete the collection,
Yeah.
and he sent us the box, which was very very nice of him. Thank you,
Thank you,
John.
John. So I've
Yeah,
smoked three of them. And I have to say, lately, the weather here in New England has been the 100% humidity.
yeah.
We've gone through a period of that, which just means your cigars, unless you've got them in a temperature controlled cabinet,
Hmm.
they just soak up the humidity.
Oh,
It's unbelievable. But I still wanted to smoke this cigar. And then, so as time progressed, it wasn't as humid. I smoked three of them. This TAA 2016 Maduro from La Flor Dominicana is awesome. It is box worthy, in my opinion, has awesome flavors. It's not a deep, heavy, rich Maduro. It does have some richness to it, but
huh?
it's very much medium bodied. It doesn't go off the charts in strength, which is weird. I thought it was going to be a really strong cigar. It's not. I would call it medium bodied. Um, very, very nice flavor profile. Some nice subtle flavors in there. You got to pay attention to it.
Mm.
I likened it to a somewhat similar experience. If I had to compare it to another La Flor Dominicana cigar, which I don't like to do, I would put it in a similar category as Lennox, and we all know how much I love the Lennox release.
Yeah.
It very much smoked like a Lennox to me, in that medium profile, tons of body, but not off the chart in strength. Awesome flavors. I would call it box worthy. If you can find a box, we were
Yeah, I
lucky
mean,
enough.
you got to definitely check the floor your floor of you got to go to a TAA retailer,
Right.
and if you go to the TAA website taa.org, you can look at who the TAA retailers are.
I don't
They
think, is there a TAA retailer in Rhode Island? I don't
you
think there is.
we have to look that up. That's a good. I know because
There
I have
might
more
be, but
access to
it
it.
might not be a shop that I go to very often.
Yeah,
There's
I
so
mean,
many shops in Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island's small, but there's like 18 shops in Rhode
there's
Island.
only 80 shops in the country that are TAA. I
Yeah.
mean, we're fortunate. We have our friends at Tinderbox, Craig Cass.
Yeah,
So
you
he
have access to more TAA stuff than I do.
right, right, and yeah. So Um, that being said, some of the CAA cigars are better than others. I think this one, I've had the regular TAA, I haven't reviewed it yet, and I was really, really impressed with that cigar. They actually put that cigar. You know what they did? They took three sizes, the TAA to Mexico, and they had the retailers vote which size
Yeah.
they want, and they came up with that box press Toro.
Mm. Mm. Sorry, I was taking a sip of water. I love the size. It smoked great. The wrapper's really dark. And if it is in a higher humidity environment like I had it in, it does soak up a lot of that moisture. Like you should probably dry box these, try and get the humidity down before you smoke them. I didn't hold that against the cigar because I knew the environment that it was in, and they did get better as they kind of aged a little in my humidor, and we're in a more controlled environment. I managed to get the humidity down in them enough where they smoked. My first one, the wrapper's it's soaking up all that moisture, especially in the wrapper. It's on the outside. And had just come off a truck the day before in 90% humidity. So, but it was still box worthy. Awesome job by La Flor. Love that.
Yeah, no,
Loved it.
I'm waiting to see what they're coming out with at the show, and I've
Did
heard
you
we
smoke
already
the Maduro?
No, I mean I haven't smoked it yet.
Yeah, definitely. I don't. You
I
need
have
to
to actually have a conversation with you guys because they are very tough to tell apart.
They are. I gifted some to some people who were going to give us a.
I think he's put it in a separate box, which was great of him. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know which one it is. But yeah, they are tough to tell. But if you go,
Yeah, and when I gifted to a couple of people in the lounge, some people that I trust next door, Brenda and our good friend Danny. They're going to give us their feedback on them, and they were like, "Which one's the Maduro?" And they really had to hold it up in the light to see which one it was. But I don't know if you need to take your humidity beads, put it in the refrigerator, get them to a certain point, and then put it in with the beads. It's tough in the summer to remove the humidity from the cigar. It's just incredibly difficult.
it's going to be interesting because when I'm heading out to Vegas, it's going to be the opposite problem.
Yeah, they're going to be dry.
I mean, when I'm taking a bunch of Boveda out there this year with a cooler. It's going to be. I mean, you can leave a cigar on your hotel in a Ziploc bag, right?
Yeah.
And you leave it out for the afternoon, and you will have a dry cigar. I mean, when you
Absolutely.
get to that 10% humidity, it's the absolute opposite problem.
Absolutely.
But when temperature comes into play, which is what we're dealing with, and humidity,
Yeah.
um, I do, and again, I'm not trying to criticize other reviewers and stuff. I really question when you're reviewing stuff off the truck, because it's not the fault. I mean, I just don't think you're getting
I
what that
pulled
cigar
I pulled
intended to
one
be.
cigar out of my humidor wheel, and it had mold growing out of the foot. And I
mean-
think there was mold inside of it, and because of that increase in temperature and humidity, it came out. Now that's one out of 30
Absolutely.
cigars that I smoked in the past couple of weeks that had, and it was just in that cigar, and it grew in the environment. So
Yeah, and if
It's
it's in the
tough.
cigar, there's nothing you can do. It's not your.
oh,
And
and
that's why I'm big cello too. That's why
yes, and this one was not in cello.
Yeah.
And cello definitely helps that problem. It's one of the we need a humidor sponsor for the show. I'm putting the call out to people. We need a
Well,
humidor
we
sponsor.
do have-
Here's the thing. I've got
Bovida,
two coolers.
You gotta get the Bovida ones they have. They have those acrylic ones.
I do. Well, I have Bovida. Well, I need like a big
A
humidor.
big one. I
Yeah.
gotta find out. I'm gonna see them at the show. I gotta see if they're having a big one coming out. They need a big one.
Right. And if you talk to any humidification, humidor manufacturers at the show, Will, please stop. You know the two manufacturers I'm talking about.
Yep.
Stop by their booth, because I tell you what, I got two coolers in my office, and it's okay most of the time. Now, in the summertime when it's really humid, I keep my air conditioning in the office at like 74, 73, 72, around there at all times, so it doesn't get too hot. But I've got tons of humidity beads, tons of Bovida packs in there, but still that temperature and humidity is going to rise together because it's relative.
Especially you don't. The problem, the challenge you have in the office is, look, you're not made of. It's not the Stogie Geeks budget's not Rockefeller. You can't run that air 24/7.
I am to a certain. I mean, I do keep
You
it.
are, you are.
Well, I keep it at 74 is what I can afford, right? I'd
Okay,
love
yeah,
to
which is
keep
not
it.
terrible.
I'd love to keep it at 68 the whole time. That would
Right.
certainly solve the problem. But it would run so much. It would be a ridiculous bill.
Right.
So I really want a large. Now I've got two like 150-gallon like gigantic coolers in my office. I really want one big cabinet, or maybe two large cabinets that are temperature and humidity controlled for the office, for the studio, to keep the cigars in. That's kind of where we're reaching. I have one at home, and the one at home would probably store half the cigars we have. And just for listeners know, like for a temperature and humidity controlled humidor to hold a couple thousand cigars or 1,000 cigars is like $4 grand. It's a little over $4 grand.
They're not cheap. Yeah.
Not cheap. I've shopped around to get into that size cabinet. They're pretty much like $4 grand, and it's a huge investment. So that's what I've been running into lately. So anyway, you got final cigars, Will, because we got to close out the show.
I am done.
That concludes this edition of the Stogie Geek Show. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thanks to our special guest, Brian Schnook. And how do you say Renee's last name? Castaneda. Renee Castaneda from Villiger Cigars. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see everyone next week
we are next week.
We're on next week. Next week on the Stogie Geek Show.